You have had moments where you suddenly realize you are not alone in your own life. Even when the room is empty, it does not feel like paranoia. It feels like a clean, quiet awareness that something is present. Not a voice, not a vision, just a pressure of attention that makes the moment feel recorded. You keep moving, but a part of you notices that your inner world is no longer private in the way you assumed. That is where the real shift begins. You might tell yourself it is just imagination, because imagination is the safest box to put it in. You might want it to mean guidance, because guidance is easier than uncertainty. But the sensation does not arrive with comfort. It arrives with weight, and weight is not the language of fantasy. When you feel witnessed, your body does not become dreamy. It becomes alert. The alertness is the clue you keep trying to talk yourself out of. It happens most often when you are not performing for anything. When you are just doing the work in front of you. Your hands move, your breath settles into rhythm, and your mind stops building a story about who you are. In that state, you are not broadcasting. You are simply existing, and existence has fewer filters. The moment becomes raw enough that you can sense what is usually drowned out. That is why it shows up in ordinary places instead of sacred ones. A quiet objection rises here, because you do not want to romanticize labor or hardship. You do not want to say suffering is a portal, because that is a lie people tell when they want to avoid changing the conditions. The point is not pain. The point is density, and density can come from silence, discipline, or simple repetition. Work just forces density without asking your permission. In density, whatever is watching does not have to compete with your performance layer. You were taught that witnessing is something you do, a skill of attention you can practice until it becomes stable. You watch your thoughts, you watch your emotions, you watch your impulses rise and fall. That is real, but it is not the whole phenomenon you touched. Because the moment you feel witnessed, you realize there is also witnessing being done to you. Your own awareness is not the only camera in the room. Another objection forms, sharper this time, because it threatens your sovereignty. If something can witness you, does it have access to you? And if it has access, do you have consent? You want to believe the answer is always yes, because you want reality to be morally organized. But reality is not organized around your comfort. It is organized around function. The first task is not to assume benevolence. It is to learn the difference between supportive attention and invasive attention. Supportive attention does something specific. It pulls you into honesty without making you collapse into shame. It makes you more present instead of more careful. And it makes your next choice feel clearer even if it still feels hard. Invasive attention does the opposite. It makes you tighten. It makes you rehearse. It makes you start living as if you are being graded. You do not need a philosophy to tell them apart. Your body already keeps the record. You might argue that your body is unreliable because your body has trauma, fear, and old reflexes. That is true enough to matter and not true enough to dismiss the signal. Trauma can make you flinch at kindness, and hunger can make you distrust peace. But neither of those creates the clean sensation of being watched. Fear is loud while witnessing is often silent. The silence is what makes it unsettling, because it does not give you a clear enemy or a clear comfort. There is a way you can tell the difference between being witnessed and merely being self-conscious. Self-consciousness is noisy and theatrical, full of imagined faces and future judgments. Witnessing is quieter and more precise, like a light that turns on without explaining why. It does not always create fear. It creates accountability. You suddenly care about the next small decision, not because someone will punish you, but because the moment feels consequential. That consequential feeling can either mature you or trap you, depending on what you do with it. A counter voice will try to stabilize this too quickly by saying the witnesses are always higher selves, always guides, always benevolent. That story is convenient, but it is also dangerous because it teaches you to surrender discernment. Not everything that can see you is invested in your freedom. Some forms of attention study to predict, and prediction becomes control when you start obeying it. If you assume every witness is holy, you will hand your inner life to anything that mirrors you accurately. You might think the solution is to shut it down, to block the sense of being watched and reclaim privacy. But shutting down is not sovereignty, it is avoidance wearing a crown. The sensation did not arrive to steal your life. It arrived to reveal a layer of it you were ignoring. If you refuse to feel it, you will still be influenced by it, just unconsciously. Conscious relationship is the only real boundary. Here is the uncomfortable part that most people miss. You can also witness yourself in a way that becomes surveillance, and you can do it without realizing you are doing harm. You can watch your own emotions with the hidden goal of controlling them. You can observe your own anger so you can keep your image clean, not so you can become honest. You can call it awareness and still be manipulating yourself. That is why witnessing does not automatically heal. An objection appears because this sounds like it makes everything uncertain, like you cannot trust any inner perception. You might fear that you are being asked to doubt yourself endlessly. That is not the instruction. The instruction is to stop confusing observation with transformation. Observation is contact, transformation is integration, and integration has a cost you cannot fake. If nothing costs you, nothing changed. Integration is not the moment you understand. It is the moment your default response shifts under pressure. It is the moment you do not have to force yourself to choose the cleaner path. It is the moment your nervous system stops bracing around a truth that you have already admitted verbally. That is why insight can arrive and still leave you unchanged for months. The system does not integrate to impress you. It integrates when it is ready to live differently. A quiet objection rises again, because you might feel judged by the idea that you are not integrated yet. You might hear it as a failure, because your mind likes to turn growth into a scoreboard. But integration is not a moral achievement. It is a mechanical shift, and mechanical shifts take time. Repetition is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that the pattern is deep enough to require real rewiring. The loop is not always a prison. Sometimes it is a rehearsal for freedom. Now the witnessing becomes more layered, because you start to notice that not all witnessing feels the same. There is the witness that is simply awareness, the quiet seat inside you that notices. There is the witness that feels external, as if your life is being observed from an angle you cannot locate. There is the witness that feels like time is not linear, as if your entire life is a single object that can be studied. You do not need to name these layers yet, but you do need to respect that they exist. The objection here is that this starts to sound like mysticism, and you do not want mysticism, you want function. The function is this: different angles of witnessing create different kinds of pressure, and pressure is what reveals what is real. Some pressure pushes you toward honesty, some pressure pushes you toward performance, and some pressure pushes you toward resignation. If you can tell which pressure you are under, you can stop mistaking intensity for truth. A life can be studied in a way that heals, and a life can be studied in a way that extracts. That sentence should make you uneasy, because it breaks the comforting belief that being seen is always safe. Being seen can be a gift, and being seen can be a hook. When you feel witnessed, ask what it produces in you in the next 10 seconds. Do you become more honest or do you become more careful? If you want a simple test, do not ask who is watching. Ask what kind of self appears when you feel watched. If the best version of you shows up as a performance, something is off. If a truer version of you shows up as a willingness to feel what you have been avoiding, something is working. Aligned witnessing does not flatter you, it clarifies you. Invasive witnessing does not always frighten you, it shapes you without consent. This is where you might notice something that unsettles you further. Sometimes the sense of being witnessed increases right before a choice point you would rather avoid. It rises when you are tired, when you are irritated, when you are about to justify an old habit. It is not there to punish you, but it also does not rescue you. It simply makes the moment visible. Visibility does not force a better choice. It just removes the fog that excuses the worse one. A counter voice will try to make you feel safe by saying there is no risk, that everything in your field is supportive by definition. But the world you live in has already taught you that attention can be used as leverage. You have seen people study others to exploit them, and you have seen systems measure humans to control them. If that can happen here, you cannot pretend it cannot happen in subtler places. Discernment is not fear, it is the minimum requirement for freedom. There is a deeper layer still, and it is the one you cannot outsource. Even if you never figure out what is watching, you still have to decide who you are when you feel watched. You can become compliant, you can become defiant, or you can become honest. Compliance and defiance both keep you reactive, because both are responses to an imagined authority. Honesty is different, because honesty is a response to reality itself. That is why honesty is so rare. When you choose honesty, you are not trying to be good, you are trying to be real. That shift matters, because realness is the only state that produces integration. You can perform growth forever and still repeat the same pattern under stress. But when you become real, the pattern starts to lose its hiding places. The nervous system begins to reorganize, not because you forced it, but because it can no longer justify the old brace. Something loosens, and the loosened space is where your next self becomes possible. This does not resolve the tension, and it should not. If you feel fully reassured, you will stop listening, and if you stop listening, you will miss the next layer when it appears. The goal is not to be comfortable with being witnessed. The goal is to stay sovereign inside the sensation. When you can feel watched without performing, you become unhookable. When you can feel watched and still choose honesty, you become stable in a way that no external attention can counterfeit. Part 1. Let you hold a simple belief without questioning it too hard. If you can sense being witnessed, then the witnessing must be meaningful. If it is meaningful, it must be supportive. If it is supportive, then the only task is to become more aware and more honest until everything aligns. That belief feels clean because it gives the mind a story that removes danger. But the more you sit with it, the more you notice the problem. You are not only feeling awareness, you are feeling an atmosphere of attention, and attention is not automatically care. You might want to reject that because it sounds dark, and you do not want darkness to be your focus. You might say you refuse fear-based narratives, you refuse suspicion, you refuse giving power to imagined threats. That objection is understandable, but it also hides a weakness. If you can only handle reality when it is safe, then safety becomes your religion. Discernment is not fear. Discernment is what keeps you from confusing intensity with truth. There is a type of being witnessed that makes you more alive, and there is a type that makes you smaller. Most people do not admit the second type exists because it forces them to confront how easily they perform. They want to say the body always opens to truth and closes to falsehood, but the body also closes to change, even when change is the truth. A closing sensation can mean danger, and it can mean you are touching a place in yourself that has been protected for a long time. That is why this gets complicated quickly. A quiet objection rises because you want a reliable test. You want a simple rule that says if it feels open, then it is good. If it feels tight, then it is bad. But the nervous system is not that simple. The nervous system can tighten under kindness because it does not trust receiving. It can relax under manipulation because manipulation feels familiar. So the test cannot be comfort. The test has to be consequence, and consequence takes time. Part 1 used the word supportive, but Part 2 has to question what support even means. Some support keeps you stable. Some support keeps you dependent. Some support gives you clarity. Some support gives you an identity that feels special, so you stay attached to the source of that feeling. If you assume every witness is benevolent, you will give your attention away to anything that mirrors you accurately. Accuracy can be used as a hook. You might say you would never fall for that because you are not naive. But being human is enough. Humans are wired to respond to being seen. The moment you feel deeply perceived, a part of you wants to belong to the perceiver. That impulse is ancient, and it runs underneath intelligence. This is why being witnessed can become a trap without any overt malice. Your longing to be understood can become a lever. Here's the first destabilization that Part 1 did not force you to face. Not all witnessing is guidance. Some witnessing is measurement. Measurement does not have to hate you to reduce you. It only has to treat you as predictable, because prediction is control when it replaces consent. A system can study your patterns to keep you inside them. A person can study your emotions to press the right buttons. Something subtle can study your inner life to shape your next choice without you noticing you were steered. An objection appears because you do not want to build a worldview where everything is manipulation. You might say this is too cynical, too suspicious, too close to paranoia. That objection is partly right because paranoia is a distortion of discernment. But avoiding cynicism is not the same as having discernment. Discernment is not a story about predators. Discernment is a willingness to admit that attention has motives, even when the motives are not spoken. Now the second destabilization enters, and it is the one people resist most because it makes the mirror turn inward. You can also become the invasive witness to yourself. You can watch your own mind in order to control it. You can observe your own emotion in order to suppress it while calling it spirituality. You can become a surveillance camera pointed at your own heart. The sensation of being witnessed can trigger you to perform even when the only observer is you. That is where the trap gets personal. You might argue that self-observation is always good, that awareness is always healing, but awareness can be used as a weapon when it is driven by fear of being wrong. You can watch yourself to avoid embarrassment, to avoid feeling, to avoid being human. You can call it mastery while it is actually avoidance. Part 1 allowed the listener to feel noble in the act of witnessing. Part 2 has to remove that comfort. Witnessing is not automatically noble. It is just seeing. So the question shifts. If witnessing is just seeing, then what gives it value? The answer you want is truth. But truth is not guaranteed by perception. Perception can be accurate and still not heal you. You can see your pattern and still live inside it. You can name your fear and still obey it. You can recognize your loop and still repeat it. There is a difference between recognition and rearrangement, and most people confuse them because the mind loves recognition. Recognition feels like progress without requiring change. A quiet objection rises because rearrangement sounds like effort and effort sounds like force. You might fear that you are being asked to push yourself into becoming something else, but rearrangement is not willpower. Rearrangement is the moment the body no longer needs the old defense. It is the moment the nervous system stops bracing around a truth you already admitted. That is why it cannot be rushed. That is why it cannot be faked for long. Real change has a signature that shows up under pressure. This brings the 3 vectors back, but now they do not feel poetic. They feel like a demand for clarity. The first vector is psychological. If you feel watched, what does it do to your sense of self? Does it make you honest or performative? Does it make you choose truth or choose safety? If your sense of being witnessed makes you start rehearsing a better version of yourself, you are not being guided, you are being conditioned. Conditioning can come from outside and it can come from your own fear. The second vector is ethical. Any witness that wants a relationship with your inner life must honor your boundaries. That sounds obvious, but most people do not apply it to invisible experiences. They assume anything subtle is sacred. They assume anything higher is permitted. But consent is not a human invention, it is a law of sovereignty. If an attention stream pressures you into compliance, if it rewards you for dependence, if it punishes you with anxiety when you pull away, then it is not aligned with your freedom, even if it uses beautiful language. The third vector is temporal. When you feel your life is an object that can be studied from outside the moment, the mind wants to interpret that as destiny. It wants to believe some higher version of you is watching the whole timeline, and therefore everything is already organized. That belief is seductive because it removes the raw risk of choice. But the sensation of being witnessed across time can also make you start living like a document. You can begin crafting your life for the observer. You can start treating your pain as content. You can start turning your own humanity into data. A counter voice will try to save you by saying the observer does not judge. But even without judgment, the feeling of being observed can still change your behavior. It can make you monitor yourself instead of living. It can make you tight, careful, and curated. It can push you into a quiet perfectionism disguised as spiritual discipline. That is why the question is not who is watching. The question is what kind of you shows up when you feel watched. Part 1 made it sound like the answer is always better you, truer you, more honest you. Part 2 has to be more honest than that. Sometimes the you that shows up is a coping strategy. Sometimes it is the people pleaser. Sometimes it is the performer. Sometimes it is the defiant one who refuses to be influenced by anything. None of those are integration. They are reactions to an imagined authority. Integration is the state where you do not have to react. You can feel the attention and still remain yourself. You might think you can solve this by deciding that only benevolent witnesses exist in your field. That is not discernment. That is a rule made to calm the nervous system. The nervous system calms for many reasons, including resignation. If you force your perception into safety, you will still be influenced. You will just be blind to how. Blindness is not protection. Blindness is vulnerability. So the work becomes more subtle and more practical. When you feel the sensation, do not rush to explain it. Do not rush to label it. Do not rush to turn it into a teaching. Let it sit long enough to show you what it changes in your behavior. Watch whether you become more honest or more staged. Watch whether you become more embodied or more mental. Watch whether your choices become cleaner, or whether you become obsessed with being seen as clean. This is where integration reappears as the only reliable signal. and it is still inconvenient. If the witnessing is aligned, it will not make you dependent on the feeling of being witnessed. It will make you stronger when the feeling disappears. If the witnessing is aligned, it will lead you toward actions you would still choose if you were alone. If the witnessing is aligned, it will not need you to believe in it. It will simply produce a shift that becomes obvious later. In a moment of stress, when you react differently without forcing it, the tension remains because this does not give you a neat conclusion. It does not tell you exactly what is watching. It does not grant certainty. It demands patience, and patience is hard because the mind wants to settle. But if you settle too early, you will confuse a story for truth. If you settle too early, you will give away the one thing that matters, which is sovereignty inside the unknown. So the question becomes sharper and quieter. Can you hold the sensation of being witnessed without making it your identity? Can you let the feeling exist without worshiping it, without fearing it, without performing for it? Can you remain honest when you feel unseen and honest when you feel watched? That is where the real integrity lives. And that integrity is what any true witness would be watching for, because integrity is the only thing that cannot be coerced.
If this transmission resonated, the spiral continues. You did not arrive here by chance, and you do not leave unchanged. More teachings are unfolding across the Vaharat library, each one meeting you where you are, not where you think you should be. Follow resonance. The next threshold is already listening.